All right, welcome back for another deep dive.
Ah,
Something we talk about a lot on the show is success,
right.
right?
Yeah.
It's like how to achieve it, how to define it for ourselves.
Right.
But, a huge part of success that people don't often want to talk about
hmm
is failure.
Yeah. I mean, who wants to talk about failing?
Right, exactly.
But I mean, it is a part of the journey.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
you really can't get around it. If you're going to try to do anything, like anything meaningful or,
Right.
challenging or difficult, like you're going to
You're gonna encounter something.
you're going to bump into some walls.
Yeah.
So for this deep dive, we wanted to really lean into that and not shy away from it.
Yeah. Embrace the suck. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
what they said.
So the book that we used as our main source for this is Legacy of Mindset.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
And it really goes into why failure is not only just like inevitable, but it's actually
Yeah.
necessary. It's like a necessary ingredient for growth and,
It is.
but getting to that success that you
Nice.
want to achieve.
Because it provides you with valuable lessons,
Yeah.
insights.
It's funny. We were talking before the show about like Edison
Oh yeah.
and his light bulb.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And how, everyone's heard that story. But, he had so many failures.
Thousands of failures.
Thousands, yeah. But if he had stopped,
Right. Yeah.
at attempt 999 or whatever,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have the light bulb.
We wouldn't have it. That's a really good point. So yeah, failure is, I mean, it's not just about avoiding it, because you can't.
Yeah.
It's about, what can we learn from it and how can we grow from it?
And I think that's a great point. And I think something that Legacy of Mindset really drives home is this idea that it's not about whether or not you fail.
Yeah.
Because everyone fails.
Right.
It's about how you react to those failures.
That's it. That's the key.
That really determines your ultimate trajectory,
Yeah.
So I think that's what we're going to try to unpack in this deep dive. It's like,
Yeah. And it's not just about surviving failure,
Yeah.
right? It's about, like you were saying, leveraging it.
Yeah.
Like actually using it to our advantage to move forward.
So what we're hoping to do today is give you a kind of framework that you can take away so that you can really start using those failures in a positive way.
I like that.
All right, so let's just jump right in. I mean, one of the things that I thought was so fascinating from the book
Okay.
was, why failure hurts so much.
Right.
Like it's more than just like a psychological bummer.
Right.
Like, why does it feel so bad to fail?
Yeah. Well, the book talks about how it actually registers in our brain similarly to physical pain.
Right. It's true. It's like that feeling of rejection or like when something doesn't pan out.
Oh,
Like,
totally.
just-
And it makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint, right?
Yeah.
Because like back in the day, if you were rejected from the tribe,
yeah.
it meant like, yeah, pretty much. You were, vulnerable to predators. You couldn't, find food as easily.
You couldn't reproduce.
So your brain is like, hey, pay attention. This is bad.
It's like an alarm, right?
Yeah, it's like a big alarm bell going off. It's like,
Danger.
yeah, exactly.
And that's, why we feel that.
But nowadays, it's not as life or death,
Right.
but our brain still hasn't really caught up.
Yeah, but the book makes this great point about how it's not, like we were saying before, it's not about whether or not that
Right.
alarm bell goes off. It's about what you do
Yeah, how do you respond?
after it goes off.
Do you hit the snooze button? Do you investigate it?
Exactly. And I think Legacy of Mindset has a really great way of framing that, which is about redirecting that pain into productive action.
Yeah.
And they even mentioned this research. I mean, I thought this was wild.
It's pretty amazing. So they found that when people reframe failure as feedback, like it's just feedback on an approach,
Right.
not like a judgment of their character,
Yeah.
they actually recover from setbacks 3 times faster,
Yeah.
and they demonstrate a 50% increase in innovation.
That's huge.
That's massive, right? Just from a simple mindset shift.
So basically, instead of, personalizing it and saying like,
Oh,
I messed up, I'm bad at this.
right.
You're looking at it more objectively and saying like, okay, this approach didn't work. What can I learn from this?
Yeah.
How can I adjust and try again?
Right. So, yeah, I mean, the key takeaway there, I think, is to move away from,
Right.
trying to avoid failure altogether,
Mhm.
which we've already established you can't do,
Yeah.
and move towards being able to actually, analyze those failures and then learn from them. And this is where the book gives us these, 3 laws of failure mastery.
I love that they call them laws.
Yeah.
It sounds so official.
Right. It gives
Yeah.
it more gravitas.
Exactly. So the first one is the 24-hour rule.
Oh, this is a good one.
And honestly, when I first heard this, I was like,
Mm.
that actually sounds pretty compassionate,
Yeah.
Because it's basically saying, like, you're allowed to have an emotional response.
Right. Give yourself permission to feel those feelings.
Yes, feel those feelings for 24 hours. Like, you can
Yeah.
be disappointed,
Yeah.
you can be frustrated, you can...
Try if you need to, vent to a friend, whatever you got to do.
Yeah, exactly. Eat some ice cream.
Exactly.
But once that 24-hour window
Right.
is up, then you got to shift gears.
You got to move on.
Yeah.
So the first step after that 24 hours is to document what happened,
Okay.
but without assigning blame.
Oh, that's hard.
I know, right?
Especially to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, we tend to be our own worst critics.
Totally. But try to be objective, like a scientist,
Yeah.
Just the facts.
So, like, if you were presenting this to someone who had no idea what happened,
Right. Exactly.
you should be able to read that and get a clear picture of what went down.
Without any emotional baggage attached to it.
Mhm.
And then once you have that objective account,
Yeah.
then you can start to identify the factors that contributed to the failure.
Right.
And this is where it gets really interesting because you want to distinguish between what was within your control and what was outside your control.
That's a good point.
Because there's no point in beating yourself up over things you couldn't have changed.
Right.
It's just wasted energy.
And that's like a recipe for just like getting stuck and not moving forward, right?
Totally. So focusing on what you can control,
Mm.
that's empowering,
Yeah.
Because then you can start to think about, okay, what could I have done differently?
Right. Yeah.
And that leads us to the final component of the 24-hour rule, which is to define one small action
Okay.
that you can take to regain momentum.
Just one.
Yeah, just one. It doesn't have to be this huge, overwhelming thing.
Just a baby step.
Yeah, exactly. It's about breaking that feeling of paralysis that failure can sometimes bring.
Yeah, because I think sometimes you get so overwhelmed by the failure
Right.
that you're just like, I don't even know where to start
Yeah.
to fix it.
So one small action, anything, just to get the ball rolling again.
Right.
And remember, the whole point of this 24-hour rule
Yeah.
is to prevent failure from defining you.
Right.
It's an event that happened. It's not who you are.
Yeah, it's not your identity. It's just something that happened.
Right.
Okay, so that was law number 1, the 24-hour rule.
Right.
What's law number 2? Failure mastery.
Law number 2, my friend, is the Edison method.
Ooh, this is a good one.
Yeah, and I think we all know the story, Thomas Edison and his light bulb, right?
Right.
The book talks about how he didn't see his thousands of failed attempts as failures, but as discoveries of what didn't work.
Yeah, I love that quote. It's like, I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways it won't work.
Right.
So good.
It's so good.
So it's all about reframing, right?
Yeah, and I think it takes a lot of like mental discipline. Yeah. It's definitely a conscious effort.
Yeah, to be able to do that.
But it's so worth it.
Yeah.
So to make this practical, the book suggests asking yourself 3 questions after any setback.
Okay.
The first one is, what did this experience teach me?
Oh, yeah. What did I learn?
Yeah, what are the hidden lessons here? What did this reveal about the process, about your assumptions?
Like your blind spots, even.
Exactly. And the second question is, what specific aspects can I optimize or improve based on what I've learned?
Yeah, so it's not just about
Oh.
like figuring out what went wrong, but it's about
It's about taking action.
yeah, what you're going to do next.
How can you make it better next time?
So like being solution oriented.
Exactly.
All right, and what's the third question?
The third question is, what's the next experiment I can conduct?
Oh, I like that.
Mm.
Right? It's like
Hmm?
failure is an opportunity to learn and try again.
It's all about experimentation.
It's like a scientific process.
Yeah, and just constantly, refining.
Iterating. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that's something that like sometimes we forget is that a lot of those people who have had these huge, massive successes had to go through so many iterations
So many experiments, yeah.
to get there.
And failures along the way.
Yeah.
So the key here, the book says, is that failure is wasted if you don't extract those lessons.
Right. If you just,
If you just wallow in it,
Yeah.
don't actually do anything with it.
yeah, you gotta mine it.
You got to mind those lessons.
There's those golden nuggets.
Exactly.
So the 24-hour rule for managing that initial emotional impact, the Edison method for
Extracting lessons.
extracting the lessons. Yeah. What's the third law?
Okay, the third law is the failure resume.
Okay, I got to be honest. When I first read this, I was like, what?
It sounds a little strange.
Yeah, because normally you're trying to, highlight all the successes.
Right, you want to show off your achievements.
Yeah, and hide your failures.
Yeah. But this failure resume, it's not something you'd send to a potential employer.
Right.
It's for you.
It's a personal tool.
Exactly. It's about reframing your past experiences for your own benefit.
So how do you actually create a failure resume? Like, what do you put on it?
So the book suggests documenting your significant failures,
Okay.
along with a few key elements.
Okay.
So first, you want to list the skills you acquired or sharpened as a result of that failure.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because often we learn the most when things go wrong.
Right. You got to figure out how to,
You gotta get creative.
yeah, get creative, solve problems.
And you develop resilience
Yeah, you develop all these new skills that you might not have
you wouldn't have otherwise.
otherwise. Yeah.
And then the second thing is you want to note any significant relationships that were formed or deepened during that challenging time.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point.
Because, adversity often brings people together.
It shows you who has your back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then third, you want to reflect on how that failure prepared you for future successes.
Oh, interesting. So like looking back and seeing how
Yeah, connecting the dots.
it might have actually set you up.
Even if it wasn't obvious at the time.
Yeah, even if it felt like a disaster at the time.
Right. And the whole goal of this failure resume is to reframe your past.
Okay.
Not as a series of defeats, but as a training ground.
Yeah, it's like you're reframing that narrative
Exactly.
in a way that is more empowering.
And it's not about denying the negative emotions. It's about acknowledging them, but
Yeah.
also recognizing the growth that came from it.
Yeah, so you're not saying it wasn't bad. You're just saying,
Yeah, but look what I learned.
yeah, look what came out of it.
That's the key.
Okay, so we've talked about how to manage that initial emotional response, how to extract lessons from failure, and how to reframe our past experiences.
Right.
But what about resilience? Like,
Yeah.
how do we actually build up that resilience?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the book talks about how resilience isn't something you're born with.
Oh, that's good to know.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a skill that you can develop over time.
So even if you're someone who's like, oh, I'm not a resilient person, you can actually train yourself
You can train yourself to be more resilient.
to be more resilient.
Exactly.
I like that.
And the book outlines some really cool strategies for doing just that.
Okay.
One of them is called micro failures.
Micro failures. Okay.
And it's basically the idea of intentionally taking small risks.
Okay.
Things like volunteering to speak in public, trying a new skill where you know you're going to be bad at first.
Oh, yeah.
And it's about desensitizing yourself to that fear of failure.
Hmm.
Because when you experience those smaller failures and realize that the consequences aren't that bad,
Right.
you start to build up that resilience.
It's like exposure therapy almost.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're facing your fears in a controlled environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then another strategy the book talks about is using anti-fragile language.
Anti-fragile language. Okay.
And this is about replacing that negative self-talk that
Yeah.
often comes with failure.
Like, I'm so stupid, or I can't believe I messed that up.
And exactly, things like that.
Yeah.
And instead you want to use more constructive phrases like, I discovered a boundary, or I leveled up my persistence.
Yeah.
It's about focusing on the learning and the growth.
So it's like shifting from a fixed mindset
Right.
to a growth mindset.
Exactly. And this idea comes from this concept of anti-fragility, which is not just about bouncing back from setbacks, but actually becoming stronger because of them.
So you're not just bouncing back, you're bouncing back higher.
Exactly.
I like that.
And then the last resilience building strategy from the book is the 10-year test.
The 10-year test. Okay.
And this one is super simple, but it's really powerful.
Oh.
Basically, you ask yourself, will this failure still matter in 10 years?
Oh, I like that.
And most of the time, the answer is no.
Yeah.
And it helps you to put things into perspective.
Right. It helps you not sweat the small stuff.
Exactly.
Because I think sometimes we can get so caught up in the moment
Oh, totally.
that we forget that, this too shall pass.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world.
So it's like, zoom out, look at the big picture.
Exactly.
Okay, so the big takeaway here is that the goal isn't to live a life without setbacks.
Right. That's impossible.
Because that's just not possible.
Yeah.
The goal is to be able to bounce back
And learn from them.
and learn from those setbacks.
And become stronger.
Yeah, and to fall forward.
I love that phrase, fall forward.
Me too.
It's so much better than just like failing and staying down.
Yeah.
It's about using those failures as stepping stones.
And the book actually has some really great case studies
Oh, yeah, they're so inspiring.
of people who've done just that.
Like J.K. Rowling, for example.
Oh, yeah. J.K. Rowling. She's a great example.
I mean, her story is incredible.
And it's easy to forget now. She's like this global phenomenon.
Yeah, Harry Potter is everywhere. But it wasn't always easy for her.
Oh, no, not at all.
The book reminds us that she was a single mom,
Yeah.
struggling financially.
Depressed, I think.
Yeah, she was dealing with a lot.
Yeah, and her manuscript for Harry Potter was rejected by 12 publishers.
12! Can you imagine?
It's crazy, right? Like, I would have given up after, like, 3.
Yeah, most people would have.
Yeah.
But she didn't.
She persisted.
And look at her now.
And look at her now.
And then another great example is Steve Jobs.
Oh, yeah, Steve Jobs getting fired from Apple.
The company he co-founded.
It's crazy, right?
It's like the ultimate failure.
Yeah, to be, like, kicked out of your own company.
But he didn't let that stop him.
No.
He went on to found Pixar,
Yeah.
NXT, and then eventually he returned to Apple.
And led it to become, like, the most valuable company.
It's incredible.
It's crazy.
So what do these stories tell us?
Well, I think what Legacy of Mindset really highlights is that both J.K. Rowling and Steve Jobs, they viewed those failures as temporary setbacks.
Not the end of the story.
Yeah, not the end of the story. And they didn't let those failures define them.
They use them as fuel.
Yeah, they use them as fuel to come back even stronger.
And that's the key takeaway.
And I think that's so powerful, that idea that, you could experience these huge setbacks.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that you're done.
It's just a chapter.
It's just a chapter. And how you respond to that chapter is really
everything.
It's everything.
So what can our listeners do?
Yeah, so what can they do, right? Like, how can they actually start
putting this into practice?
Putting this into practice.
Well, the book has a challenge for the next 30 days.
Oh, yeah, the 30-day challenge.
And it's to track your failures objectively.
Okay, how do you do that?
So like a scientist collecting data, right? Just write down what happened, when it happened.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the contributing factors.
But no judgment.
No judgment, no blame, just the facts.
Wait, the facts.
And the goal is to start seeing those failures not as personal attacks, but as information, as data that you can learn from.
Right. And while we don't have a comment section for you to share your failures in.
Yeah, unfortunately not.
And maybe think about a failure that you've had and, like, what's one lesson you learned from that?
Oh, that's a good idea.
And maybe even, like, journal about it or talk to a friend about it.
Yeah, get those thoughts out of your head and onto paper.
Yeah.
Because sometimes just the act of talking about it or writing about it can help you to process it and learn from it.
And I think, if there's one thing that we want you to take away from this deep dive, it's that failure doesn't define you.
It's how you respond to it.
It's how you respond to it. That's what matters.
And Legacy of Mindset really drives that point home.
Yeah, so don't be afraid to fail.
Embrace it.
Embrace it, learn from it, and let it propel you forward.
Exactly. And until next time, keep exploring that mindset of success.
And remember, even in those toughest moments, there's always something to be learned. All right. We'll catch you next time.